Ghislaine Maxwell has been found guilty on 5 of 6 charges for conspiring with and aiding disgraced serial sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. According to ABC, Maxwell showed no visible emotion as the verdict was read, and her family exited the courtroom without comment.
As for what Maxwell's guilty verdict means for other accused associates of Jeffrey Epstein, Florida lawyer Adam Horowitz, who has represented multiple Epstein accusers, told Rolling Stone, quote, "This is a huge setback for Prince Andrew and his defense. Had Maxwell been acquitted, she would have been a key witness for Prince Andrew." Another lawyer for several Epstein accusers said, "I think Prince Andrew should be quaking in his royal boots. Reckoning is coming for everyone who enabled Jeffrey Epstein and participated in his scheme." Friend of the show and culture editor at The Federalist, Emily Jashinsky, joins us now to discuss. Hi, Emily.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here. So do you think that this is going to mean, spell doom for Prince Andrew?
No, I don't. I think it should, but I don't think it will. And I think that's the big takeaway from this entire trial is that the allegations that will never make it to court, those are the ones that I think are the most telling. And in Maxwell's case, yes, there are allegations against Prince Andrew. She did not take the stand. From what we know, she is not, she's not being forthcoming with all of these other elements. Like, we're seeing the tip of the iceberg right now, and we sort of have an indication that there's something under the water that's much bigger, but we can't really see it. And this trial didn't do a whole lot to bring that forward, I think, for obvious reasons. And Prince Andrew is another one who I think the system finds a way to protect itself time and again. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell being found guilty is not the system protecting itself. That's great. This is good. This is justice for the people who were abused by her. Absolutely. But at the same time, there's so much more going on here that the trial was so narrow as to not be helpful with and to not really touch on that. Yeah, I guess Prince Andrew, it's not good to now be having had such a close association with 2 convicted people. But at the same time, I think in his case, the system is very, very powerful.
Yeah, this story is one of the weirdest stories I've ever covered because it purportedly involves so many rich and powerful people complicit in an utterly disgusting crime, something everyone on earth believes should be a crime, is a crime, and the most, the thing you should be most punished for transgressing this kind of norm. And yet, at the end of the day, we're not, there was not testimony, there was not evidence presented about the involvement of all these rich and powerful people we're hearing about, and we're just holding one person accountable, and we should hold them accountable, like you said, but we're holding them accountable in a more narrow sense. And I think, my sense was the way to get her to give details about the involvement of other people was to kind of offer her some kind of deal. Clearly, that did not happen, or they did not decide to do that. What is your read of that choice by the prosecution?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And again, it's in a sense, the narrow focus of this trial is a good thing because it was focused on justice for these accusers, and that's great. At the same time, this was a system. They were abused by a system. They had, it was almost like a business, the way that it was run. And in fact, it may have literally been a business. We just don't know the details of that. People like Les Wexner, the Barclays guy. There's so many serious allegations about associations with people beyond just Prince Andrew, people that aren't even talked about in the media very often, that are very rich and powerful and that had very suspect relationships with Epstein and Maxwell. And her being found guilty on these counts and going to prison for a very, very long time, that's all good. It is not helpful to uncovering the rest of what's happening below the surface, the actual iceberg itself.
And there was just overwhelming evidence against her. I don't know if they have overwhelming evidence against all of these other powerful men who've been accused. They have the accuser saying, I was basically pimped out to this powerful person. But beyond that, and maybe a photograph of that powerful person with their arm around the young girl. But beyond that, they don't really have this sort of overwhelming mountain of evidence like they had against Ghislaine. With her, it was, witness after witness after witness, accuser after after accuser saying, she was there, she recruited me, she participated in this, she was the one who, did the introductions. And you've got a lot of different witnesses and accusers saying this. That's a lot different than saying, hey, one time, this sort of anecdotal story that would have to then be proven in a court of law. And the only one that would be able to actually give us any evidence against these powerful men would be Ghislaine herself, and she didn't. She has no loose lips whatsoever. Those of us who think, who believe that this was maybe potentially an intelligence operation of some kind, look at this and say, she clearly didn't want to say anything. If she is truly intelligence, like some of the theories are about her, then hey, listen. When you're an officer of the state or a rep of your state, or, spy for your country of some kind, then your life is on the line, right? You're sacrificing your life. Part of that sacrifice could actually be the loss of your life, or the sacrifice is you go sit in jail for the rest of your life.
Yeah, right. So something doesn't add up because, what you're describing is enough evidence in so many cases to put so many people away. Like Alice Sebold, right? This author the person she accused of sexually assaulting her, who went to jail for a long time. She accused the wrong person. He was just exonerated. And the only evidence was her saying, "Oh yeah, that was him," and him saying, "No, that's me. You picked the wrong person in the lineup." And he went to jail for like a long time. Like that is enough to convict a whole lot of people. Maybe, but I guess people who don't have access to the kind of robust defense that wealth and power.
People that don't have the title prince.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly what's going on here. And the thing is, we actually don't even know what physical evidence really exists. We do not know the scope of the physical evidence because a lot of it was confiscated and hasn't seen the light of day beyond our government. We do not know about the tapes. We do not know about everything. And that's actually one of the reasons a lot of people are saying, well, this trial looks like more of a cover-up. And I don't know that I'm willing to go that far yet, but like it looks like more of a cover-up than it does a trial because you're able to try Maxwell without veering into any of the territory that's uncomfortable. I think Kim's point about connections with intelligence is the most important point, in my opinion, because those connections are so, the evidence for those connections is so clear. And right. it's so compelling. And I'm not saying we know definitively that, but it's right. so compelling that when you have a narrow trial like this, on top of everything else, where there's where the mountain of evidence that we know exists, but we don't, and there are things we don't know, we don't know that we don't know exist. So there are all of these different things that didn't come out in a trial like this, and there's still time. I mean, there will be other trials, and Maxwell's going to appeal this decision, and there will be a legal back and forth in the system. So other things can still come out, but as far as this trial goes, it didn't. And I think, to Robby's point, that does not add up, given the compelling evidence outside right. of the trial.
And they did, and this happened with Epstein the first time, right? He was convicted, exactly. He was sentenced to, I think, 18 months, and he got house arrest, or like a house arrest. He was like, routinely allowed to violate, like he got a dispensation to like leave all the time anyway. He got nothing.
Yep.
Right. Now let's talk about real quickly the what she was found not guilty of. So this is interesting. So there were 6 counts against her, and what she was found not guilty of is enticement of a minor to travel to engage in illegal sex acts. But she was found guilty of conspiracy to entice minors to travel. So she was guilty of conspiracy to entice, but not the actual enticement, which I thought was really interesting. What do you make of that, Emily?
Yeah, I think in this case, it was probably a situation where the jury didn't think that the evidence presented was like actually hit the standard. And that's usually what happens when I think you have, those 5 counts and then one is in one direction. It's just they felt like the evidence in that specific case, they probably believed that it happened, but they didn't think that the prosecution's evidence had hit that burden, which is high. And I actually think that's a good sign that the jury was really thoughtful and was actually taking each count right. seriously. So that would be my initial read on the situation. But it is one of those things with our legal system that it's just like, it's funny because it's not funny in this case, but it's just the sort of quirks of the legal system.
I feel like we've talked about a lot of cases lately where juries really got it right. So
yeah.
It's been good to see.
Faith in the American people.
That's right.
I think Now she's facing what, like 60 or 65 years? Because that one shaved off 5 years.
Yeah,
that one was with 5. So what is she now facing? 60 or 65 years? But they're not going to do sentencing just yet because they say, well, she needs to get a booster shot before we can bring
Kim,
her
we
back.
had promised not to talk about COVID in this segment. Okay, we're gonna wrap before we go in that direction. Emily Jashinsky, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, guys. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, and we'll have more Rising right after this.